Let everybody get on for a second.
I don't know. The three commissioners, they're gonna be virtual, we're all gonna be virtual ones in Cortez, Colorado. One's taking care of us, you know. And, the other one just got back from last time, his wife was sick, nice. So they're in for you. Okay, that's, this is fast.
One thing. All right, Darlene, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. And Valerie, can you hear us?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're just waiting on Larry. Larry?
You might have to unmute yourself, Larry.
Larry, your mic is muted.
Got it. I'm here.
All right, perfect. So they're all on and you can call to order to invite.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Do we have a pledge for work?
No, it's just a work meeting, you just call to order. There's nothing else more than.
Under trying circumstances, I would definitely like to welcome everybody here. I don't know that there have been very many meetings with this town where there's been one commissioner and the meeting is still legit, so thanks for getting on Zoom, Valerie and Darlene and Larry. And and we also want to welcome Ryder here today. He's with us. And Kevin Smedley is with us. And they're gonna be part of the program today. So the discussion on item B, number 1, is the general plan update with Kevin Smedley. So we'll turn this over to him and see what he has to tell us today.
Okay, this will be very brief because there's 2 documents that Crystal put into your folder. The town survey, the draft that I put together based on all the questions that you had. It's down to 5 pages, I believe it is, or maybe 6 with the backup questions or the background questions. So if you could please look that over and email me with any comments that you have so that the next meeting we can finalize that. And I also sent a summary of the 2 open house, all the comments that were received at the 2 open houses. And so I found it better or easier for me at least to have it just in a spreadsheet, or not a spreadsheet, but in a Word document that I could just page down through and they were all put together. So you can look that over, that's for your information. I understand that there's an open house on October 4th. And I will put together a probably a 1-page handout that you can use at that open house for the town, that you can use to hand out. And that's all I have right now, unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions from commissioners? Comments?
Go ahead, Val.
I just have a question about timing here because I feel like time's kind of getting away from us a little bit. So what in your best estimation, after, naturally, we all have to look the survey over, answer questions, but what in your mind, Kevin, is a reasonable estimate of when this survey would be finished to send out?
So I need to get your comments back, and let me just say, let's say, if you could get your comments back by the end of the month, because we need to get them then to the town board, make sure they're okay with the survey going out, that it represents, the things that they would like to see, if they need to add or track or to or take away from it.
Okay,
So you could get comments by the end of the month. And then, it would be on one of their upcoming agendas. The survey can be going on while we are beginning to update the material. The survey will definitely inform it, and we may need to go back and address some things. And I have a, Gantt chart that I put together that I forgot to send, that I will, get to you the first of the week, so that you'll see kind of the timing on everything.
okay, great.
And
I-
so that, the comment sheet is basically just the spreadsheet I shared with you, Kevin?
Yeah, that's exactly, it's just in a Word document, so you don't have to go from tab to tab.
Okay,
I know that Darlene likes spreadsheets.
So I didn't delete the spreadsheet, I just put that together, especially as something that can be given to the town board in an easier format for them to look through if they want a printed version.
Okay. And Larry, you're muted, so we don't know whether you have a comment or not.
Yes,
Ta-da.
I'm muted on purpose. My dogs are barking and all
Okay.
kinds of commotion in the background, so. But no comment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
I wanna make a point to, the commissioners, especially Valerie but to all of them, the Valerie and Darlene. And Bronwyn, as Commissioner Chair, for the efforts that they put forward so far. I mean, they're just huge and they've been successful. And there's lots and lots of comments, and I know there's been talk about, what ones do we not include in our survey? So, appreciate Kevin being open as well as us to, what is, effective in his experience, because most of us are inexperienced with this. But I know that Darlene and Val have worked really hard to put these questions and comments together for the survey, and hope you use as many as you.
Oh, yeah, most of them are there, the wording may be a little bit
Okay,
different.
all right, great. Thank you. Riker, proposed ordinance, chapter 40.02, neighborhood commercial.
Yes, so I think it was the last planning commission regular meeting. I provided the planning commissioners with a draft of a neighborhood commercial zone. The planning commission wanted to see a zone that fits in between residential and your standard commercial zone. This draft here puts that zone, we've inserted it in your existing commercial ordinance. The reason for that is there are some standards that are applicable or that you'll want to have applicable to both the commercial zone and the neighborhood commercial zone. So if we place it in this format, that allows the planning commission of the town to change those requirements if they need to and have it affect both zones rather than having to change it in two separate places in the code, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In addition to that,
Any questions from the commissioners that are virtual on that? Do they understand it?
so I have a question. This is Darlene. So how would you like to receive our feedback, Riker?
so the best way to get feedback from the commission would either be to receive that feedback in a meeting from you, a meeting that I'm in attendance of, or for that feedback to be provided to the clerk via email so that she can send it on to me. Then I can incorporate those comments into these drafts and present it to you and make sure that it's all going the same direction.
And from our side of the perspective, I would like to see that also provided, like if I send my comments, I can send it to Crystal to send to you, but I also am going to be sending it to the other commissioners.
Yeah, well, that's
yeah.
totally, I think, I don't know that I see an issue with that, as long as, for me, for billing purposes, what's going to be most effective is if there's a single point of contact, and that's why I've asked that that be the town clerk. That way we can keep track of what the town is asking Sunrise Engineering to do. And that it's being billed appropriately and we're not overbilling or underbilling.
So would it be better for you if we had a single document in which we had all our comments with our initials or name next to those comments?
That can't, I mean, that would be great, but if it comes as separate comments, that's fine. As we do this more and more, I'm sure we'll get where things will be ironed out to where I'll know, and the commission will know, hey, we need to get right for our comments, within this time frame so that it can be incorporated and be ready for presentation in the following meeting. It becomes more difficult if those comments aren't received until right before the meeting, because I don't have time to get those into a draft and address them.
So what is your due date that you need?
That's dependent on how quickly the commission and the town would like the ordinance to come back before them. So if they want it before the next meeting, preferably if we're going to have the public notice the document, then I have to have it turned around back to the town 10 days prior to the meeting.
Yeah, it won't be in October. The earliest we could turn it around is November.
Okay, yeah, well, then, so if that's the case, I mean, if you got me your comments within 3 or 4 weeks, then I'd be able to turn it around in that.
And how do
timeframe.
we deal with questions?
So if you have questions, you can submit those with your comments, and I'll just respond to those to the clerk, and then she can provide you with that. Additionally, my hope is that as I present these drafts to you in the regular meetings, that if you have comments at that time, that they can be given to me, so that I can answer any questions that you might have. And then as you review it further in depth, that you can ask those questions in your comments, and that those issues can be addressed, whether they're addressed as I represent the ordinance, or whether I address them with an email out to the town prior to that.
And Crystal, would it benefit you if we dropped those documents into SharePoint or emailed them directly to you?
No, I want an email, not into SharePoint, because I don't constantly get into SharePoint, so I want those emailed to me so that I know. And it's a paper trail knowing that I've received them and important to Riker. Also, if you are CCing your comments to the rest of the commission, that's violation in the Open and Public Meetings Act.
That's
So-
why I was suggesting SharePoint.
Yeah. You can put that into SharePoint, as well. But, and then just forward it to me, and that is fine.
Because I think I want to see what questions and comments the other commissioners have, especially when we
And I
don't
think-
have an open discussion.
I think it's fine if you guys have, a file and that we can start, say ordinance, sent to Riker. In our SharePoint, we can have a thing saying ordinances sent to Riker, and we can put, subdivision ordinance. And whatever you have in there, like my comments from Darlene are in there. And then you can put those files in there, but also send that to me. Does that make sense?
And like in the file that you put them in today, I already have some questions and comments on a separate document labeled with my initials. So I'll just email that to you tomorrow.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm wondering if it would be easier for Crystal if Darlene, if you wouldn't mind, being the clearinghouse, so that she's not getting 4 different emails about it. She receives one, with all of our comments on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we could like just initial our comments
Right.
and our questions. And I've already started that. If you just want to add yours,
Yes.
I can just put DP and change it to
Okay.
commissioner
Well,
comments.
I will email you sometime next week when I get home.
It's in
That's fine, yeah,
SharePoint. It's in SharePoint. You can
Right.
directly add to it yourself.
Oh, okay, perfect.
That is fine to get 4 different emails. I get that way from town council. It's totally fine.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
Is here, and he knows as well. I put it in there, hey, this one came from, so-and-so Commissioner Valerie or Commissioner,
Okay.
Darlene, whatever, so it's fine.
Kent, what are your thoughts?
I think, that, the clerk has said, whichever way it comes, it works for her. She prefers the email one or SharePoint, but Val makes a point. I think you guys are trying to help one another make it as easy as you can. So I don't have a preference there. I'm, gonna leave that up to you guys to do yourself.
I just find value in knowing what Kent thinks, knowing what Larry thinks, knowing what Val thinks, rather than me just sending
Uh-oh.
it in isolation is my point.
Well, I will tell you, whatever you guys do in SharePoint is your own thing,
Mhm,
but the comments need to come out of SharePoint,
correct.
to me in an email that I will send to Riker.
So,
Somehow, some way, some shape or form. Does that make, does
Yeah.
everybody got that?
yeah, so we have to remember.
Crystal, we can't hear you.
We have to remember.
I
that,
can only hear like every fourth word you're saying.
What was that?
I can't hear Crystal.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, so everything that's in SharePoint, whatever happens in SharePoint, that can go and stay in SharePoint. That's
Bagels.
fine, and then it needs to go out of SharePoint into an email. So I can send it to Riker.
Oh, we lost Val temporarily. I'm sure she'll be back. So is September 4th, that would give us about 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks from tomorrow. Would everyone be able to get their comments to Riker by then?
Yes. Or can.
Val is back. Oh, you're muted.
Out of my control.
That's okay. So Val, is October 4th due date for comments to Riker work for you?
Yes.
Larry, can you hear that date, and does that work
Yeah.
for you?
that works for me.
Okay,
And then if there's any questions or comments that you guys have tonight, I can address those tonight. If there's anything you want to go over, if not, we can maybe wait until I receive that email from you guys.
I have
Okay.
a couple questions.
Okay.
One on 40.04 location. Traditionally, commercial has been on Route 9, and I don't see that mentioned in that section.
So you're talking about 40.04.04?
Mm-hmm.
So that's because this is referencing the neighborhood commercial zone, and the intent of this zone is to be kind of placed in between commercial and residential. Its place isn't supposed to be on SR9, its place is supposed to be on the backside of those properties that are on SR9. Does that make sense? It's supposed to
Yes,
act.
yes, but as it is written, I find it confusing, and someone could argue that we could have this neighborhood commercial anywhere.
No, that makes sense. I can adjust that. I'll make that more clear in the ordinance.
And then apartments and buildings, I think that should be a prohibited. We don't have anything in code for that.
Okay.
That's my opinion. And then under convenience food restaurants, are we talking fast food?
So the idea with those is that they are, more like, the intent was that they're more like cafes, things that would serve the local community. The uses in this zone should be catered towards the residents and their needs and use. Less towards tourism.
Yeah, maybe another word instead of convenience then. And then multifamily dwellings, that is very, very vague. I know there's talk of, I've never heard of talk of anything above a fourplex in town. I'm just wondering if that can be clarified. These are just my thoughts.
Yeah, so a lot of these uses were just pulled from either uses that the town already has or uses that similar zones in other communities have, so we can
Yeah.
change any of these, as desired by the town, so.
And then, under the physical restrictions, the setbacks of 7 feet, 10 feet, and 5 feet from rear seam. I don't know, but I just, this is one area where I'd really like to hear opinions by commissioners. Maybe
So-
after you leave or whatever. I'd like to see it at least 10 on each side. And also, what about corner setbacks?
Yeah, so I can add those in. The reason that the setbacks are set and what they're set at is the council, when this was, when they were providing direction on this to draft the ordinance, they mentioned the potential of smaller setbacks was one of the things they wanted to see. And so that's why that was placed in here. There is there was talk of including a clause that would be protection for residential areas, meaning that you could have a smaller setback as it abuts to commercial. But if on the side that it abuts to residential, we would put into place a kind of a buffer area, require perhaps a fence or a wall to be constructed on that property line, and then a certain distance from the property line that would be a buffer area to protect the residential area.
And one thing I did not see here, but I experienced in Salt Lake City in a neighborhood, where was I? Sugar House, was a lot of these kinds of businesses, and they were lovely, and the community supported them every night. But one thing that happened is they closed at 8 p.m. And just, I don't know if that's the hour for us, but could, when it is embedded in a neighborhood, can we consider special hours of operation be limited in that zone? That's a question I have. And those are most of my questions. But I'll still send them to you.
No, yeah, that'd be great. And I can address those things that we've talked about, with the multifamily dwellings, the apartments, and, the protection of residential areas or the setbacks
And hours.
and hours, yes.
Yeah, and I think if I could say, you make a really good point, Darlene, about the neighborhood hour type thing. And it can be controversial and not, we can use this example of the historical corner here in town and renting it out for venues, and we have hour restrictions, for music and those kinds of things. I've worried and wondered about, lighting of things like the BMX park that's in my neighborhood. And do we want to have hours there, in an older part of a residential area like downtown like this? Everything in small commercial businesses starting to come in, cafes, bookstores, mom and pop type stuff that individual entrepreneurs. I can see where close to the street or the sidewalk might be, the setback might be less, but I can see what Darlene says is that borders where it's in between houses or next to housing, residential housing, things like that. I'd like to see, kind of what you saw in Salt Lake, Sugar House, and how that looks. Be nice if we could take some looks at that, because I think that's as important as lighting. Hourly shutdowns for neighborhoods and so forth. So something for us to discuss, please. Thanks, Darlene. Anything else?
Just one more thing I'd like to point out in this draft. One of the things that the council requested is that some provisions and standards be put into place for the option of shared parking. And so you'll see that was included under 40.04.10 under B. What I put in this draft is a process that would allow an applicant to come in for a conditional use permit that would allow them to have shared parking. And then there's some standards that are required in here for that. As far as what total parking requirements they might have. It's like how many stalls or spaces they need to provide. And then what conditions they need to meet in order to qualify for that. So as you review this, please look over that and make sure that those conditions are what the town or what the planning commission would like to see. So that we can adjust that if we need to.
Okay. Next item is, item 2, under proposed ordinances, record chapter 18, division of land. Can you explain that?
Yes. So, over the past, in the past 2 legislative sessions, the state of Utah has made changes to state code. And put into place mandates, for the subdivision review and approval process. With the changes that they've made, they've put into place a deadline by which those changes need to be adopted, and that deadline is December 31st of this year. Those changes are fairly extensive. I'll go over those briefly just so that you can be aware of them. One of the main things that, or the biggest change that has been put into place is that the state has removed the town council or city council, municipal councils from the preliminary plat and final plat approval process. So these applications can no longer go before the town council. And then final plats can no longer require town council or planning commission approval. And so they've changed that. They have also required or put into place review cycles. And limited those to a specific number of days based on the size of the town. For Virgin, that review cycle is 40 business days. And I'll go into more depth about how and where that applies as far as it's instituted in this draft. But essentially, an applicant submits a complete application. Once the town determines that it's complete, they have 40 business days to review that application and provide feedback to the applicant if there's any deficiencies there. Once the applicant has received feedback, they have 40 business days to respond to that feedback, make adjustments and resubmit. And then the town will then make sure the application is complete again and review that application. And they can do that up to 4 times. The state allows for 4 review cycles. Once you hit the 4th review cycle, if an applicant has submitted their subdivision application and it does not meet the requirements of the town and has not complied with the modifications requested by the town in the feedback that they've provided, then the town would be able to deny that. And then the applicant can, if they like, pursue an appeal process.
So what's the purpose of the state wanting to change?
So one of the reasons that they've done this is to help understand the subdivisions or to make subdivisions an administrative process. So to differentiate it between a zone change or a general plan amendment or something of that nature. In a couple of municipalities that has become jumbled, I would say, and subdivisions have been held up for perhaps legislative reasons instead of administrative reasons. So this new process, the way that they put this into place, will essentially make it so that if they have the zone for this and they meet all the requirements in your ordinance, then they're just making sure that they're meeting all the other standards and specifications that the town has, so that they can essentially have this use on their property. And so it shifts the focus of the legislative approval back to the zone change rather than at the time of the division of land. Does that make sense?
It feels to me like, as we discussed this, philosophically, I know the legislature is strongly leaning towards developers, as representatives on the legislature, and there's a lot of laws, changes, and commitment from them, I think, to their party, if you will. So I can understand that. I can understand that they probably run into all kinds of delays and costly, timely problems. And yet I wonder if we still have the protection as a community to be able to have the time, if you feel we have the time, or the state, we don't have a choice, we probably have to vote to approve or not approve. I mean, how does that, why are they even asking us to?
So there's some things in this ordinance that I'll point out that are policy preferences that the town gets to decide. There's some wiggle room, I guess, that the state has put into place that the town can make some policy decisions there.
Okay,
And those are the main decisions that we need made by the town. But ultimately, a lot of these requirements are mandates from the state.
okay, and you explain to us the wiggle room when?
Right now.
Okay.
It's on my,
Right.
on my list. And then the other, to kind of continue on with the question you asked prior, the other thing that this accomplishes is it should allow the town to receive all of the information it needs to review these applications upfront. I know that in several other municipalities, there's an issue with developers submitting an application and then kind of piecemealing that application or the requirements from that application to the city, which causes the review process to be drawn out, but also increases the likelihood of the town or the municipality will miss things in the review. This requires the applicant to submit everything up front. The way that this draft that we presented to the town is written requires the applicant to submit what the state calls subdivision improvement plans, which is construction drawings. They have to submit that with their preliminary plat, so that has to all be complete upfront. They can't do that after the fact. The application won't be reviewed until they've submitted all of those documents with the application.
So does that mean, Riker, if in the preliminary plat is approved and they have 2 buildings, and then all of a sudden there's 4 buildings, that would not be allowed?
Correct, yeah, so they'd have to comply with, if they got preliminary plat approval for a certain number of lots. And then they started constructing more, or came in for final plat approval and had more than, say it was 4 lots. If they had more than 4 lots on that final plat, but they had only been approved for 4, then the application, they wouldn't be meeting the requirements of the ordinance and therefore would be denied.
So, and then under F2, under completing a final plat application review, it does say the administrative land use authority, and earlier that was defined as planning and zoning. Is that also planning and zoning? Because I thought I heard you say we couldn't do that.
Under F2. And I believe.
My understanding is we could approve one or the other.
So the way that state, I may need to go back and change that section. Because how state code has it written is the planning commission can be designated as the administrative land use authority for preliminary plat. But they cannot be designated as the administrative land use authority for final plat.
And who
And
would that
so-
be?
So what House State Code reads is they allow that to be an individual board, or staff member appointed by the municipality. They just can't be anyone that is on the planning commission or on the town council. And it couldn't be the mayor either.
Could you, because in the training I went to, we had this discussion about we could do one or the other. And I would like to
So-
clarify if that's a possibility, and if so, I think we as a commission should have some input on which one we'd prefer to be involved with.
So Utah State Code 10-6A or -9A-601.4 says a municipality shall review and approve or deny a final subdivision plat application in accordance with the provisions of this section and municipal ordinances which may not require planning commission or city council approval. And so as we've clarified that language with the state and with the, sure, the name. Oh, the town, League of Cities and Towns, and their attorneys, when that language may not require planning commission or city council approval is prohibited. Meaning that the municipalities cannot have their planning commission or city council approve the final plan.
May is discretionary. Shall is mandatory in legal.
Correct, and then that was our reason for clarifying that with the League of Cities and Towns and their attorneys and then with the state. Their intent behind that code is that it is mandatory.
Then they should have used shall.
Does it say may or does it say may not?
It says
It's
may not
may.
require planning
I think
commission.
may not is pretty, prohibited.
But it legally may or may not is optional.
And
It's
if the
highly
town would like-
recommended, but it's optional. So
And if the town would like to pursue that course, that's up to the town. Our recommendation for Sunrise Engineering would be to keep planning commission approval, if that's what the town desires, at preliminary plat. I think that could run into, the town could run into issues with the state accepting the approval of this ordinance.
okay.
Riker, wasn't this the ordinance that you presented to town council and they filled in all the blanks?
Yes,
Okay.
so they did provide, some direction on some of the discretionary items.
Yeah,
And I'll go over those as well. I just wanna make sure that I've hit all of the main points. An additional thing, I don't know if your previous code required this, but the state no longer allows for public hearings to be held at a final plat level. And then they allow municipalities to hold one public hearing for preliminary plat if they choose. They don't require it. So that's a discretionary item. That's something that the town can choose to do. I believe the city council determined that they would like the planning commission to be the approving entity for preliminary plat. And two, that they would prefer that a public hearing be held.
And then will there be a sign off sheet? Because in the past, we have had ordinances on developments that were violated. And that would disqualify under this. But what kind of documentation will be kept? So like, I'm the town staff who checked against code. Do I have to sign off on those things? And date it?
That is something that the town could put into place themselves. I know that with other municipalities, they have built into their application process, a way to determine who reviewed the application and at what point they determined that it was complete, and at what point they determined that it was, well, the planning commission would be approving the preliminary plan, but at what point they determined it was complete, and therefore the review process would start. So those are things that the town can put into place. Those aren't requirements based on the state code. But that is something that the town can choose to do. I know that, the previous municipality that I worked for had on their applications, you would sign the application upon receiving it. And then you would date, a location on the application to show that you had determined it was complete.
Yeah, I would like to investigate having a sign off process so that we are assured that things are completed.
Yeah,
I
and
know.
then that will probably come at the time that the town constructs the application to match the ordinance.
Mhm. Well, I saw your checkoff list, so that might be a good starting.
Yes, so
Point.
that is something that the state requires. They require that the town be able to provide a checklist to all applicants with all the requirements for preliminary plat, final plat, subdivision improvement plans, and for simple subdivisions.
Okay.
And so that's why we provided that. You'll notice in this, draft, originally your ordinance had the requirements in the code itself. What we've done is we've created that checklist as a policy so that it can be changed more easily by the town, to better meet their needs. Where that checklist has to be provided to the applicant, or that policy has to be provided to the applicant. What we found is that municipalities have as they're going through this, there's gonna be a learning curve. The town's gonna probably notice items that either do or do not need to be required at certain points in the application process. And all of those things that are in that checklist, all those requirements for the submittal requirements, those can all be determined by the town, it can all be changed as needed. There's not specific requirements for those, in this update to state code, and so
Hmm.
if there's things that the town would like to change at a future date, that's the reason it's been provided in kind of a policy format, so that they can more easily be changed by the town to adapt to their needs.
I'd like to investigate just making it a little more than just a policy. Because
Yeah,
it seems a little willy-nilly and can easily be changed. And if we put a lot of work into this and it's good, I think there's an advantage to it not being that easily changed and for it to be public.
yeah, and we can change it to however we need to, I mean, it can be adopted as a policy if the town sees fit to adopt it as a resolution, and that can be done as well. Or if it needs to be placed into the ordinance, then that can be done as well, so.
Okay, thank
That was
you.
just something that we've seen, so. And then I think that covers the kind of the larger changes there. The items that the town council, that I presented to the town council, that they, we've gone over some of those, that they made their preference clear on was, first of all, like I mentioned, that the planning commission be the administrative land use authority for, preliminary plat. And that the no public hearing, or that a public hearing be held for preliminary plat. There were expiration periods put into place. The town council talked about at length. Those expiration periods address when an applicant submits an application, the town provides feedback, and then it's on the applicant to resubmit. If they take too much time, the application can expire,
Mhm.
and therefore make it so that they have to comply with whatever requirements would be current at that time, instead of being able to try to grandfather themselves in.
And
Go ahead.
this would be good to try to get on public hearing for October. I know October is filling up fast. But we do have a deadline, and it'd be cool if we had time to revisit if we needed to. When do you need things? When would you like our comments to you on this document, Maker?
So the sooner the better for October. The only thing with October is, so I won't be able to attend that meeting in October. I will be attending a different planning commission meeting up north.
So it would be November?
Yes, unless a special meeting is held to hold that public hearing, but
Yeah.
that would be determined by the town.
Because our public hearing items are due this Sunday for October.
Isn't this already on our public hearing?
I'm
So
so-
we public noticed it for the meeting that got canceled.
Yeah, that's on the 25th of this month.
Of this month, okay, yeah.
So it's already on public hearing.
Okay. All right. And then we can get more questions for you, and then
Yeah, yeah.
if needed,
It's already on for public hearing.
yeah, but that's this. Okay, so that will be interesting, yeah. Aren't both of these on for public hearing?
I don't believe, not the neighborhood commercial one. That one I wanted to get some more.
Subdivisions
feedback.
is. Subdivisions is, not, but the village, the neighborhood
Village
commercial.
commercial.
not.
Okay, because the subdivision is the one where we have a due date,
Exactly.
right?
Correct.
Right.
Um,
So here's the only caveat as I'm thinking about this. So we'll get our comments to you by October 4th for a neighborhood commercial, but that would still mean it would be public hearing in November for
mhm.
neighborhood commercial.
Yes,
Okay, And the division of land, the public hearing is in September.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then just some specific points that the council has requested the planning commission's opinion on is the approving entity for final plat approval. There's the town has some choice there. The town council has suggested either the town engineer or the development review committee, but wanted to get feedback from the planning commission on that. See what their thoughts were.
and because of just the sound quality of Zoom, I know you're speaking really clearly, Riker. It's probably me. Is there a way that you could email those questions to Crystal and then she could get them out to Planning Commission so they wouldn't be moving on us?
Yes, yes, I can do that.
And
Um,
if you could cite where in the code it says that they
Yeah,
want us to.
I'll make sure I provide the question and the location in the draft.
Okay, thank you so much.
And then the only other thing, and I'll address this with the council as well, was the council expressed a desire to look into a separate process for commercial. When they brought that up, I was under the understanding that a separate process could be created. However, after reviewing state code, the only parts of state code that a commercial application would be exempted from would be the review timelines that have been put into place for that ordinance. Meaning that they would still need to follow the same process as far as who is approving the subdivision and who is, both preliminary and final plat. Would need
But
to follow the same process.
There's
for
no
commercial.
time, but there's no timeline for them?
Correct, yeah, the town can take as much time as it needs to ensure that it meets the requirements necessary.
Okay, okay.
And that's stated in this draft, but.
Is that also,
timeline-
is that also through of the commercial applicant? They have as much time as they need, or is there a limit?
So they would still be subject to the expiration periods that we placed in this code.
Okay,
So if they took too much time, then their application would still lapse. But the town is not under any requirement to complete their review of the application within 40 business days. or anything
and
like that.
will that be added to this ordinance?
It's already in there, so.
It's already
there's
in.
Several places in the. code
Yeah,
that
I see that.
evidence
Mhm.
that it's only applicable to single family, two family, or townhome developments. And that citation's right out of state code. so.
Okay. Okay, okay.
And so, yeah, so that really, as far as what I have from town council was just who the approving entity should be for final plat, whether that should be the town engineer or the development review committee.
Okay,
I can provide that in an email and cite the location of that in the code.
thank you so much, Riker.
And then I did have, one other thing. That it doesn't pertain to division of land, but it does pertain to the ordinances that I've been asked to work on. Larry, I believe you sent over an ordinance about live work units.
Yes,
So I've reviewed that a little bit and the only thing that I would add here, I noticed that there was a parking requirement put into place. But the parking requirement only pertains to the square footage of the commercial area. And so the only feedback that I would add is that a minimum of one off-street parking space be required per residential unit that's tied to that commercial space.
and my
That makes
thought
sense.
was that the tenant would be the same person that operated the business, so there wouldn't be a separate car for that particular person. It'd be the same vehicle. They're not
So-
gonna, I mean, that's why I eliminated that parking spot.
So that may be the case, but this, the way that this is written allows for single or multiple units. And so if you had a commercial space, I don't know if this is the intention of this code, but If you had a commercial space that had 3 or 4 residential units attached to it, then you would want to ensure that you had parking for each of those residential units.
Yeah, I guess that's not clear. I assumed one commercial unit, one residential unit, but if you're thinking maybe multiple residential units, then yes, that would be an issue.
And so and I guess that's what needs to be determined. The way that it reads right now is it says a single or multiple units consisting of both commercial space and a residential component occupied by a business. And it says a resident, but then it has an S in parentheses related to the business. So the way that it's written now implies that there could be multiple residential units attached to the commercial business, or multiple residential units attached to multiple commercial businesses, but all the same structure. So we may want to determine some form of clarification there. If the town wants there to be kind of one residential unit attached to that, then we can reword it to specify that, but if not, then there probably needs to be some requirements put into place that protect however many residents may be there.
Yeah, and how about if you have one commercial unit and one residential unit, then we don't consider the square footage of the residential unit for parking, but if there's multiple residential units per commercial unit, that everyone after the first one would require an additional parking space.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate, because then it meets both requirements or both needs there.
Okay, yeah, that's a great addition.
And then that's all I had. Unless you have any other questions for me?
Any other questions from the commission? Okay. I want to hang you guys up all day. You gotta drive to get out of here. Riker, maybe you need to stay a little more valuable than Kevin. But, we understand if you need to go, if the rest of the meeting is not apropos for you. This takes us to number 3, chapter 50, the lighting ordinance. Darlene, I'm gonna put you on here because I know you've spent a lot of time on this and Valerie.
For lighting ordinance?
Yep,
That's you, dude. So, some of these we don't need to discuss because they're just little spelling errors or punctuation things.
Right.
So I'm just gonna skip through those, but under definitions on light trespass.
no, I just got your email to me just before I left, coming here, so I haven't had a chance to go through
That's okay,
your recommendations and stuff like that.
yeah.
So I don't want to delay anything on the calendar for us moving forward
Well,
on this.
This is going up for public hearing. And then we'll,
Next week,
yes. I'm
Okay.
looking at it. Did I get that right? Yes. This outdoor lighting. And the definitions for outdoor lighting and the resort zone closure.
so I feel personally that commissioners that I want to look through, because there's some substantial changes. And I appreciate the time that has been spent by Val and Darlene. And I want to make sure I spend some time on this. If you want to go through them tonight, then that's okay with me, or if you want
I'm
It is-
more than willing to hear what the public has to say first and listen, and then before I add my comments. I don't know, Val, what do you think?
I don't know, there's some things in here that I think could be changed even before it goes, can it be changed before it goes to public hearing? I mean, it's not. A lot of it is just simple, it's redundancy, that kind of thing. eliminating to make it more clear. But
Mhm.
are we able to make changes before it goes to public hearing, or is it going to public hearing like this?
Clerk,
Is this set for public hearing on the 25th?
Yes,
No. You can't make changes to it. When it's
Okay.
posted, it's posted. So you're
Okay.
going to, unless it's grammatical errors, you know what I mean, like the spelling
Right.
error,
Right.
parentheses, something like that. But if you're gonna make significant changes to it, that's gonna change it dramatically, then no. I mean, if you're taking out an
Okay.
and adding in a the or something like that, that you can probably change when you vote on it. And
Mhm.
that's, it won't need to be sent back to public hearing. But if it's gonna change, we're gonna, redact the whole third line whereas, and we're gonna change this and take out 300 lumens and put 400 lumens, that's significant enough where it needs to go back to a planning
Back to
or to
planning.
a public hearing.
Okay.
so we'll need to take a look, commissioners, at, because I'm sure there are some significant changes or opinions about this, and there's probably some things that aren't that significant.
But this is a pretty big ordinance for the town. I feel like having more than one public hearing on this.
I agree.
is Okay.
Yeah, I agree too.
It's gonna be okay. I think this is gonna be
Kinda like
fine to
the-
have more than one public hearing.
Okay, we are going to have a presentation via Zoom, because Alan Eastman from the Governor's Commission for Dark Sky was here when we had an outage, drove down from Salt Lake. So he can't make it this next week, so he's going to do it virtually, and we have the PowerPoint. I'm guessing that's maybe a 5 to 10 minute presentation. That's next week at the meeting. But again, there's just a lot here that I want to go over, and if we have to have and move this on to another public hearing, then
That's okay.
we'll make that decision, or if we can make the changes for some simple things at this next meeting
Mhm.
and vote, and we'll do that. So let's everybody look pretty hard at it. Any comment?
I think that's a good plan.
I do too.
So are we not discussing any of it tonight?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I think if you want to take some time here and you've got some things that you want to underline, feelings, each of you. I think it would be good to, let's talk about it. Let's
Okay.
pull them out and let us take a look at what you're really concerned about. Or if it's just, a spelling here or something like that, or,
No, there's one that's pretty important to me.
okay, go ahead, Larry.
It's the grandfathered luminaries that's been stricken out. And also in 50.14C, it has, if that's left in, it takes care of it. In 50.14C, it talks about a grandfathered in lighting situation applies until there's new construction or a remodel with the value of more than 50% of the project. It seems like it's asking an awful lot for all the new businesses we have here in town to have to go change all their lighting because they met code when they put them in. It seems unfair to, like the hotel could spend 20 grand on lights pretty easily if they had to. And some of the other businesses could also. I think we should leave the grandfathered clause in as long as we have that 50.14C included, then I don't see any issues.
But Larry, this says that only applies if they have remodels, a reconstruction, like if it burned down and they rebuilt,
Right.
or additions to existing construction of over 50% or more of an existing structure. And add,
that's
And
That's
that's,
pretty standard for like when the smoke detector law passed, it was.
so where's the part you have a problem with? I didn't hear that
It's
citation.
in the definitions, it's under luminaries grandfathered. It's in there, but it's been stricken out, and I don't understand why we've removed it. Or who removed it.
Oh, because it would be replaced by that code. But that's another thing to read through with that lens.
And then a couple other small things, but one of them is, I'm getting ready to build a structure. And it says that my parking lot lighting can be no taller than 6 foot tall. But my neighbor who's got a pickleball court in his backyard can be 18 foot tall and can run his lights till 10 o'clock. I feel like public safety is more important than a pickleball game, even though I love pickleball. I just feel like we're given an exception for the court lighting, but limiting the parking lot lighting.
Public outdoor lighting.
Yeah, it's under recreational lighting. There's the so under the parking lots.
Yeah, that might be, that could be refined perhaps.
Yeah, so there's just a couple little things like that. And then one of them is that, I've got a light in mind for each one of the doors in this building I'm building. And it's shielded and it only shoots straight down. But because my property is above the street, if you're standing in the street, you'll be able to see my light source. So it almost becomes impossible to light a doorway without violating I think just making sure it's shielded and only points down is enough. Anything that's above, any property that's above the street will be visible, the bulb will be visible from the street.
Are you making a list of all these comments?
Yes, I have them. I have
Okay,
them all in my notes.
that'd be great if that was SharePointed.
Yes,
Oh, Larry,
yes.
are you saying then that, a light, an outdoor light, let's say, is shielded, properly, but if, you're up above where someone might be, out of your property, they're gonna see the direct light because they're down below looking up.
I couldn't hear you. Maybe a little closer to the mic.
I'd eat it if I was any closer, but. I got two mics now, because that'd be, is that any better?
Yeah,
Can you hear him, Darlene?
I can. Just get close to the mic, Kent.
His mouth is touching the mic.
Oh, maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. Okay, so is that any better?
I
That's
hear you
good.
now.
Okay, I just need to speak up. So my comment was a question of, I've been concerned at times because my home is on a hill. Everything outdoor lighting, all the outdoor lighting is recessed into the overhangs of the garage and into the roof of the house and the garage and the porches. But if I'm down below my house and I'm looking up at it, I see a direct beam to me. Because that light is there. Is that your question?
Yes, so in other words, if we didn't eliminate the grandfather clause, you would have to shield every one of those lights with something so that you couldn't see them from the street, which would make them basically a spotlight. And to get the same amount of coverage as a floodlight, you'd have to have several of them. So I think we leave and that would be for residences, commercial, that's everything.
No, because some of the, I don't, I'd have to think more about that. Kent, I think this is a great question. And I wonder if the Dark Skies Utah guy knows of some potential solutions to that.
It is a
If
great
the-
question, and
if
that's a
the-
good comment too, because I'm sure that Alan Eastman would have opinion, and we can get some opinions on this, because I've wondered about it as my own home and as I've seen other homes. I know that, one of the changes that I got today from one of you, I think it was Val or somebody like that, talked about intent. You know, what's the intent of the law and the rule of the ordinance of, and I think it's important maybe for us to always understand that the intent is to protect the dark sky and make sure that we also create the correct amount of safety for civilians and that we protect wildlife and those things that require the night to survive. So the intent really means a lot to me. And if I'm on the same level and my light is shining out into a neighbor's, the beam is shining out into a neighbor's lot, then I believe I'm breaking the intent of the law, which is I need to make, and I know sometimes it's hard, and Larry, you and I have been business people and commercial business people. It's hard sometimes to think, well, geez, I was a car dealer, so, you know, I want the whole neighborhood lit up with my spotlights on the used car lot. Times have changed. We can have it if we want to live in Bergen, or Laverton, but, or St. George, but we're not any of those towns, and we're not where they are. So my opinion on this is almost kind of a social opinion that, and I believe this is also the same opinion that the administrators have in Springdale, where this basic ordinance that you're looking at came from. And that is that we don't want to have a battle. We
Mhm.
just want to educate and understand what we
Mhm.
want to have occurred to protect what we already have.
And
And
I agree with that, and I love the ordinance. I just think it's unreasonable to expect that anything that's on a hill is not gonna have, I mean, the lights would be basically worthless if you had to shield them so much where you couldn't see them from below, if the house is on a grade or the commercial property was on a grade. So I think if it's shielded, that's all we can ask, or should ask. And that,
well, the
if it's-
question then becomes the definition of proper shielding. And
well, it's very well defined.
okay, because I drove into, last night I was late getting home and I drove in to, White Bison because there was a lot of light coming out from down on the floor, where they have their pickleball courts. And I noticed that from my home, a mile away at night, that glow. So they're not shielded at all. And a proper shielding, I think, would correct that situation. And I think that we have to look at having the proper kind of time for people who already have lighting up, and what can we do to help educate them and give them the time so that it's not a financial burden to them. I'm willing to put more shield on my spotlights that are up under my front porch canopy and can be seen, but can still be seen from the street. And yeah, I want to talk about what it's going to cost me to do that. But there may be some new kind of lightning bulbs other than the spot beams that I've got up in there that would solve the issue. So that's kind of my opinion, is that we don't want to scare people and say, hey, we're gonna make you spend a whole bunch of money right now,
Mhm.
even though you've got these lights up. We have a new ordinance for lighting that asks that we make some new changes. And I think there should be a grandfathering period that helps the businesses and the residents have the time to make those changes. But I don't think it should be, 30 years from now, or, 10 years from now. I think we need to try and educate how important that
So
the issue that the ordinance is trying to address.
5024 has an amortization table on how to
Mhm.
take care of this, but it requires a, what are they calling it? A audit of non-conforming outdoor lighting. Seems like that's an additional cost to the town to add additional cost to our existing residents. And yeah, I just think that if your house or your business was to code when you built it, that you shouldn't be required to change what you have just because a new ordinance is passed. Just like if a construction requirement is changed, the footings go up in size from when you built your house to what the new houses are required to have, you shouldn't have to go back and put footings back underneath your house because now that's the new law. I feel like
The footing of your house doesn't spill over into your neighbor's yards, your neighbor's windows. And I know of some residential lighting situations that, if grandfathered in, are horrendous. And I don't know that I'm okay with not giving all of the citizens around that space relief from that. And I don't think the cost of lighting is as prohibitive as a footing or something like that. I think there are creative, cost-efficient ways to improve, or actually keep our night skies, because that is a value of pretty much 95% or more of the people in this community. So it is a high priority for us.
And this may be an issue that Alan, that's the name.
Eastman,
That's-
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, I would like to hear his input on this, because I don't think this is unique
Unique.
to us. I mean, other municipalities have
Yeah,
dealt with this. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but I think that he would be very helpful in
the
moving.
town of Springdale has the grandfather clause in there. We've struck it out, so we're not if this came from the town of Springdale and we've struck it out, then and I'm not sure why it was stricken out, but unless there's
Good
some
point.
law that has a
Yeah,
real,
good point. And I'll have to check that. I know that they have a grandfather clause. Of course, they've been working on this for a decade or more. And in talking to the city, it's costing a lot of money to get to where they want to get, because they chose to help those people. We're just putting bulbs on shielded back in as the bulbs are in now. And they chose to work with the citizens to try and educate them as to why it was better for them to invest in, and why it was better for the city to invest and help them financially make changes as time went on. So I think that there needs to be, it seems almost just obligation for a survey to take place. But but at the same time, and I'm not sure if it's necessary for a survey. And the expense of hiring a code enforcement officer and giving him, I know that at the town council meeting, this week, there was a concern about, the cost of hiring a code enforcement officer. And
Can I interrupt you?
what was that?
Can I interrupt?
Pardon?
Can I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead.
The mayor has hired a code enforcement officer, and he does start on Monday.
So thanks, I appreciate that, and that's, to me, that's good news.
Me too.
But there's a big expense. What was the question?
Was a comment.
Darlene,
It was, Val was just saying a comment, that's all.
Val,
Yes,
comment?
I made my comment already.
Okay, yeah, I think Kevin, I think that Alan Eastern certainly has
Yes.
insight on this
Yes.
issue.
And I bet he knows of towns who, as Val said, it's not unique. And what are,
Right.
what are potentials, ways to address this? Because it is a very valid question.
Mhm. And I can see both sides. I totally
Yep.
can see both sides. So, but other towns have done this. We can do it too.
If Springdale subsidized the lighting change for their citizens, do we have money to subsidize the lighting changes for our citizens?
Or are there grants available to help them?
Right.
So these are all things, I mean, if Utah State has started this commission, perhaps they have resources that they can point us to.
Mhm.
So,
I know that sometimes I'm told that I'm naive about reality. I know it's important, I think all of you feel it's important that this ordinance be updated and improved and put on the books, especially for the future
mhm.
development, so that we don't have to worry about grandfathering. But we have those businesses and residents that are not compliant with this, if we put it forth as it is. And I have a strong feeling of not wanting to offend people and not wanting to, make them mad, but to sit down and have discussions and talk with them about why it benefits them to become compliant, sooner than 10 years from now, or whatever the date that we put on this document. And I think that there'll be people that object to that. And I think you have to deal with them individually, each one of them. And work out a program that will work for that landowner.
Well, and I think if we look at the sign ordinance, it's a better ordinance because we heard from a wide perspective
Mhm.
of citizens and voices,
Mhm.
and expertise. So I'm all about that.
Any other comments?
Mhm.
Yeah, one quick one for Darlene on the sign ordinance.
Mhm.
I don't have it in front of you, but I think it said that that internally lighted signs aren't approved. But on this ordinance, they are, so we need to change one or the other if they're conflicting.
Are not approved.
Yeah, I thought that on the sign ordinance, it said you couldn't have an internally lighted sign,
Correct.
but on this one, it
This
says you
one, it says,
can,
oh, okay, I get
with
what you're saying.
very
Yes.
specific requirements, but
Mhm. So to
but-
be consistent, absolutely.
yeah. Right,
Thank
so-
you. I will check that here.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Anything else?
Not at this time for me.
Mhm.
Okay. Then we go to number 4. chapter 52, sign ordinance.
So I didn't get any direction from town council on this. But Crystal, what was determined at the town council meeting?
So they sent a lot and, Mitzi's gonna come and be the liaison about this. She sent an email over late after the town council meeting. And I can forward those on.
Please.
And you received those emails as chair, you were CC'd in that email.
I did not get an email.
No, you did not,
Can't.
you were not.
Hint.
Kent did, correct. And Kent was supposed to forward those on, but it's okay, I will get them to you. I will go ahead and forward those on to Darlene. Darlene, if you could put those into SharePoint this weekend for me.
Sure.
I'll forward them to you right now. You could put those in. This is in regards to the comments for the sign ordinance that they were talking about.
Misty was making all this.
All the comments that they were talking about. Missy wrote down all the comments for that town council had in regards to the sign ordinance. I will go ahead and forward that on to you, Darlene, if you wanted to go ahead and put that in a quick spreadsheet and put it up into SharePoint, or do as you please with it, so the rest of the members can see it. I'm out of town this weekend for a wedding, so I don't have time to do that. Real quick, just touching base with a couple of things, actually. She didn't do it. She just made notes on some of this stuff, so is what it looks like as I'm looking at her email right now.
Can we all get a copy of that, or is it just going to Kent and Darlene?
Yeah,
I'm gonna put it in SharePoint. I'm just,
Oh, okay.
and Crystal,
Yeah.
I am getting ready for another medical trip to Salt Lake. So
Okay.
if I can make a spreadsheet, great.
Actually, she took your draft that you have and she crossed out things and then put her notes right in green. So if you look at the draft ordinance that you have, she just crossed it out and put it in green. So you guys can just easily just go through it and see the changes that town council made in green.
Is that on SharePoint?
I'm putting it in right now.
Okay, perfect.
So I will add that in there.
In September,
Are you putting it in September, Crystal?
Which one do you want me, well, where do you want me to put it?
September.
September 19.
Okay, I'll put it in there, I gotta log in, just give me a second. Just a couple of things while I have your attention. With that, there are two things coming down the pipe from town council that they want to see on your planning and zoning, and you see that in SharePoint right now, actually, it says, there's a folder in there, it says from clerk. Do you guys see that? It's in the work meeting.
Right?
So there's two things in there that are from town council that they want to, and that was discussed in the meeting, that they want to have in your, they want to have a public hearing on for next month. One's 40.02, and the other one is the DRC. Those they would like to have on the public hearing. And then the other one that's in there in that is a zone change that came in that needs to go on for public hearing in there. Those documents are in there for you guys to review. So those three things will go on for public hearing in October.
I'm sorry, what is the third thing?
The zone change
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
application that came in,
Right,
you
right,
just
right.
scroll through those, see the maps. You can see where it's at, it's east side of town.
So this is not next week. This is in
Correct.
This is for
But-
October.
right.
October.
Right,
Yes, I'm just
right.
making sure people understand.
Yeah.
So Darlene, when you get me the not agenda, but the items for public hearing, it's not really necessarily an agenda, but the items for public hearing come, by Monday. Those are three of the things, keep in mind on the back of your mind that I have in the back of my mind that will be going for public hearing for October.
Okay,
So Crystal,
Yeah.
on the items that are going to be sent for us, that are stricken for, the sign ordinance. If we get those and discuss those in Wednesday's meeting, this coming Wednesday. I
no,
thought the intent from the town council was that we could go ahead and discuss and, vote on moving that sign ordinance on. That was the effort they were trying to make at the town council work meeting.
What's, the sign ordinance is on for public hearing, correct, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. There's so many changes that they sent down, it's gonna need a public hearing, it's
okay,
gonna need another one.
okay. All right,
That even Heath Snow said that's why Heath Snow said it's gonna need another public hearing.
all right.
With the amount of changes that they made, they were significant enough to have a public hearing, it's gonna need another one.
have you added that to SharePoint yet, Crystal?
I do it right now, it logged me out of everything, so I log back in, I'm doing it right now, I just got into the SharePoint. You said put it in the September 19th, just put it in the work meeting?
Yep,
So commissioners, let's look at those changes. I think that the town council, was trying hard to, give us, advice so that we can get this, moved forward and passed. And, let's make sure that we talk about that on the agenda. Can we talk about it? It's not gonna be on the agenda next Wednesday then, Crystal. It'll be it'll be October, or is it gonna
You
be
can
stopped?
talk about changes on the agenda, I haven't done your actual agenda, I was just gonna use the same agenda.
So we can talk about it Wednesday, what the changes are.
Yeah, you guys can talk about it if you want to
We just have to have another
do a
public hearing posted, because.
Yeah. You can't vote on it
Okay,
unless you're voting on the one that's posted.
which,
we already voted on. We sent it to them.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't vote on it.
I
Unless you're
still,
voting on-
I'm, still don't see it.
I don't see it either.
It's coming, it's coming, just give me a second, I'm working on the laptop, right? Not going in. Uploading, thinking,
so we can talk about these things next Wednesday. We can't pass any, we have to have another public hearing. Okay,
Um,
do you see one of them in there yet?
You put them in September?
September 19th work meeting,
Mm-mm. Maybe it takes a minute.
Okay. Can we, look at this when it comes in? Crystal, can you make sure that gets crossed? And then we can look at it and we can talk about it next Wednesday night.
Well, let's take a look at the agenda for next Wednesday. It's already pretty full.
It's right at the top. You see the first one right there, right at the top? Do you see that they're looking at?
I'm looking at next Wednesday's agenda. So, Kent, you need to call me and we need to talk and revise this ASAP, okay?
Okay.
And decide, do we have time to talk about everything? Because it can't be the same agenda for the regular meeting. So,
I'm
but
gonna post your agenda, I'm gonna post your agenda on Monday, just FYI.
yes, those two will be due on the same day.
Hey, go back out of your 19 folder
Yeah,
and you should see it right there. Do you guys see it? One click out of the 19 folder.
I see neighbor P and Z suggested edits.
Do you see the two?
Okay, on only the changes.
I'm not seeing it at all.
It's there.
And can you kind of
Yeah.
tell me where?
Um,
Are you seeing
well-
both of them?
So it's going to have a little little lines coming out. It's called P and Z suggested edits from TC. And mine, it's you have from the clerk, general plan, and then the original sign, lighting, neighborhood commercial. And
Okay, it's in the general plan folder?
no,
Okay,
keep going down. It's under neighborhood commercial zone.
You guys see them both in there?
and forgive me, but what folder are you in?
Today's.
September 19th work
19th.
meeting?
Correct. And then agenda
I-
and documents.
Okay. Okay, all right. From the clerk for next month, is that what we're looking at?
Nope, keep going down.
Okay.
P&Z suggested edits from TC.
Ah, got it, thank you.
Larry,
Sorry.
can you find it?
Sherry says, yes, I found it.
Oh, great. And Kent?
I don't have SharePoint, so I'll talk to you about it.
Okay. All right, I'll have to look at that. We'll have to look at it and see if we can fit it in. I'm going back, Crystal, to 11, what was originally 11, and public hearing notice. Yeah, it's not on public hearing, and it was not under discussion.
Both, there should be two documents in there, so.
Two documents on the lighting ordinance?
No, there should be two documents on the, in that SharePoint folder for you to review from Misty.
Okay, yes, I see both of them. Why are there whereas? Oh, the whereases, suggested edits for the whereases.
And then
Oh,
I
yeah.
put a,
Yeah, and that's, yeah, that one's easy because I don't know how we removed that a long time ago, so I don't know why it's still there, but yeah, I already caught that one. Okay. I got
I'm
that.
gonna forward you the email to
They're
Darlene,
not
just,
too many.
I'm gonna forward you the email to, just so you can read her things real quick.
As
so you-
A public
Okay.
hearing on just the changes.
Right.
That means I think did they vote to approve it and then send it back for changes on those items?
They didn't vote to approve or deny, they just voted with,
Oh,
there's just the changes and they sent it back.
okay. All right, okay. Okay, so we need to talk and update that and get it to Crystal. I'm on it, I want it before Monday, because I have other things I got to do on Monday. And I want it done in case there's an issue that I need to revise. I want to have some leeway there. All right?
All right.
And can I ask this? I have one more question on number 5, Kent. Can we have our current documents? Do you know, or do you know, who knows, where our rules and procedures, and there's a second one, policy?
Policies and procedures. Yeah, I can't find either one of them.
Well, I have one, but not the other. Let me see which one I have.
Crystal, is this something that's on the town website by any chance?
I have the general rules of order and procedure, but it's the second one. And since I don't have a copy,
But is this something that's on our town website?
it's a resolution, so no.
Okay,
Um,
I was just reading it just today or yesterday, and I had it, and I don't have it here with me.
well, and it was passed in 2016, so it is definitely time for an update. But if, and maybe I'll put this in an email to you, Crystal, you know, if we could get a copy, what that second document is, because there were two. One, this is order and procedure, and the other was policy or.
I thought it was policy and, yeah,
conduct, something like
procedure.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we could get that second one, so we can see what we currently have, and then work
Right.
towards that would be awesome.
And do you have that, the document that you have, Darlene, do you have that digitally? Can you send that to me?
I can make a copy and make it.
Okay.
digital. I mean, yeah,
What would be easiest for you?
taking photos, uploading them. to
Okay, yeah,
SharePoint.
what, I just want to see it.
Yeah,
Flying
Yeah.
blind.
I
here.
will see if my printer will scan it, but it
Okay.
doesn't always cooperate.
I could pick up a copy on Monday morning if that would help.
Larry, do you have a copy of the current meeting rules of order and procedure? Looks like this.
No,
Okay, so you need one as well. So I'll just take photos and put them in.
Okay,
Yeah, send it to all of us.
thank you. And how many pages is it, Darlene, you want? We can scan it here.
Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I have a proposed one, but we can look at it, but but we never formally adopted it, okay? So,
Did the town council give us this to?
I
approve?
got this one from the town. Okay. And this might be what we start with, you know, and it might behoove us to look at what town councils looks like as well. So it's it's like, what do you do when the motion is made and all that? Do we want to do that? But there was there was another one. And one of the words was policy.
Right,
I
right.
forgot what the other word was, and I
Yeah.
apologize for that.
I thought it
Um,
was policy and procedure, but I could be
Maybe
wrong.
I'll email someone in the town too, or make a phone call or something, and get a copy of that up too. Alrighty,
Yeah,
Okay,
that'd be great.
any other items of business that are not on the agenda?
I don't know if we're allowed to talk about things not on the agenda.
Good point.
It is a work meeting, you guys can always talk about things if you need to be, because it's a work meeting, it does not necessarily have to be on the agenda, if it's something that you need to discuss and work on, because it's a work meeting, it doesn't have to be on an agenda.
So, okay, so let's go back to the public hearing in October. We have two items from town. They're in this meeting's folder from the clerk, right? If we could look at those and understand that those are going to be on public notice. We have another potential,
Darby,
what?
it's 3 items.
I know, I was just gonna say, and then there's another potential zone change. Do we want to put the sign ordinance, the parts that are changed on public hearing then? That will all depend on if we have time to do that. And I don't know if Val and I have time to meet to do that, so that may have to wait. Is there anything we should put on October's regular meeting? I think we should put, do we want to add a chair?
I think, yeah, I think we need to deal with that for sure.
We're gonna have lighting to look forward to October.
No, lighting will be a discussion item in October. Lighting is going for public hearing next week. If my brain is
Right,
working.
because we talked about that earlier, getting the input from the public and then making our recommendations and moving it forward after that. So,
Mhm. So for the public hearing for next week, it is the lighting.
Okay.
I have possible subdivision ordinance, so the subdivision ordinance that we were presented with tonight.
right,
And then an ordinance amending chapter 42 and closing resort zone to further
right.
expansion.
And I have a CUP application by the town. I have 4
It
items
should
on.
be, yeah, it should be. It
Yeah.
should be 4.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't know why the one I'm looking at doesn't have it. I must
Yeah.
be looking at an old one. Is that correct, Crystal? There are 4 items for public hearing?
For October,
No, for
For next week.
no, there's 5,
What's the 5th one?
I thought there was 5, let me look. Oh, maybe there's 4.
Yeah, I show lighting. Then I show closing the resort zone. And then, the subdivision regulations. Number C, and then D, conditional use
Sorry, you're right, 4, yeah,
permit
Okay,
yeah,
for the church.
yeah, the
All right.
lighting, short zone, you're right.
okay. So I'll just update the document. That document's all done. But for the regular meeting agenda, okay, I need to send that to you by Sunday. So for, what is next Wednesday, Val? It's the 25th?
The 25th. Mhm.
And then also for the public hearing, and that is on October,
Uh, um,
9th. Okay. Alrighty. So Kent, call me
Yeah,
at your convenience and we can go over this, okay?
okay.
Larry,
Alright.
is there anything you needed to add?
Hopefully the ordinance that Riker has just looked at can be added at some point.
Yeah, when are you gonna be able to put that in SharePoint, Larry?
I thought I had it there once, but I don't see it now. I can
Okay, so
make
go
the
ahead
change.
and put it in October's file,
Okay,
so we don't lose track of it.
I'll make the changes that Riker talked about with multiple residences requiring
Yeah.
more parking than just one.
okay.
Okay. Okay. Anybody, Val, are you have anything?
Nope.
Okay. Right, I know what I need to do now. Thank you.
Okay. There's no further business, we stand adjourned.
How about we make a motion to adjourn first?
I need a motion.
Okay, I need a motion to stand.
I make a
to-
motion, we adjourn the work meeting.
And I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Val and a second from Darlene. We'll vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, you guys. Have a great night.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.
Sheila,
night.
thank you, Sheila.